Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is a brand new year. Lots of us are searching for change and also looking for healthier alternatives to our lives. And I want to talk about one today that you probably have not even thought about. You know, holistic living has been on our radar for a while, but what I'm talking about here is indigenous living. And Douglas Becker knows all about that. He's living the lifestyle and thriving and helping lots of other people do that as well. Douglas, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, I really want to dig into this. I have some thoughts about indigenous living, what it means, but why don't we just boil it down to the basics right now for everybody and really explain what that lifestyle is?
Well, basically, indigenous living is, and that's that's your term. I don't usually call it indigenous living, but a holistic life, really, from the indigenous perspective, has a few different factors. One is that there's a perception that everything's connected, and the second one is that there's a perception that everything changes. And in indigenous medicine, the reason people get ill is because they forget one of those two things. So in traditional ancient cultures, they were actually developed to affirm those things, the way that they connected with each other through festivals, ceremonies, such as the Balinese culture. For 1,000 years, 4 million people thriving in harmony without any war. They've developed a whole way of life that actually really promotes them being healthy. They don't really, there's illness here and there, but it's not like we have here. They have even some medicine. They have a tradition of the actual place was founded on by medicine masters, actually. But they just the life of connecting to nature, connecting to themselves and to their community and family in a particular way that keeps energy flowing in the body, that keeps it healthy and resilient and adaptable.
So this seems very much similar to that holistic lifestyle. Even talking about nature, it's often been said, quite often, that we need to get back to nature. I know it's a cliche, but it's so powerful and so helpful in helping us heal, helping us feel better. Even just walking barefoot outside or just looking at some scenery, people don't take the time to do that. When you talk about the medicine that you are aligned with, what do we mean by that? What type of medicine? Where's it come from?
Yeah, well, I practice Tibetan medicine.
Okay.
And Tibetan medicine was an integration of many systems. The system from the Siddhas, which is really ancient India, which is who founded the Balinese actually culture. Ayurveda in India as well, Chinese medicine, and what's called Egyptian Greek medicine, known as Unani. That's what Hippocrates and Galen practiced, and it was preserved within the Muslim culture. And so these systems were all mixed with kind of the Himalayan folk, almost shamanistic kind of traditions in the Himalayas.
So
and it was done at a time when those systems are really strong too.
I guess it's an interesting question based on your lifestyle. And I want to get into in just a moment how you went down that path, what led you to that path. But all of this being said, when was the last time you took a modern medicine? For whatever it might be, whatever ailments, I'm talking about the last time you went to CVS, Walgreens, any pharmacy, local pharmacy, and got a prescription.
Probably 30 years ago or more, when I was at the dentist. They wanted me to take some antibiotics because I had a heart murmur. And about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after that, I was at the dentist again, and they suggested it. I kind of told them I wasn't really doing those things. So they had me go to a doctor they said the only way they wouldn't let me do that is if they had a doctor and he didn't find a heart murmur, if it disappeared. And so I went there and I had no more heart murmur. And so they didn't require me to. That was the last time I
Wow.
was ever really involved in any kind of modern medicine. You know, I don't buy stuff at the drugstore. I don't buy, you know, like a lot of people do Advil or Tylenol a few times a year or whatever. Yeah, I don't do any of that. And neither of my kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old daughter.
Well, I have a 14-year-old daughter as well, and I wish I was going down your road when it comes to medication because I'm not the biggest believer in it either. And I can't tell you the last time I took a Tylenol or anything, Motrin, anything like that. It's if I have a headache, call it that, which is what most people take those meds for. Just try and get more sleep and tough it up. I don't take, I'm not taking medicine that was from years ago. I just don't believe in it unless you absolutely need to. But there are alternatives if you know about them, if you know about indigenous medicine.
Yeah, I mean, my teachers in indigenous medicine were also medical doctors, trained medical doctors in general. I would say 75% of them. I trained with a lot of different modalities. You know, so I traveled the world for about 25 years, trying to find the best healing methods. I lived in 3 different continents. I lived in Ecuador for 3 years. I lived in New Zealand for a year, and I lived in Asia, mostly India, for about 3 years as well. And yeah, I mean, they always stressed mostly about fevers. If someone had a high fever for too long, that not to ever shy away. The concept with the indigenous tradition is that we live in a world of medicine. So even the pharmaceutical medicines, even things you wouldn't normally think of as medicines, they are considered to have a place. It's just a matter of using discrimination whether they're necessary. And
Yes.
what the side effects can be, what the toxicity can be, what the benefit is, that kind of thing.
And I 100% agree with you. Like there's a place for modern medicine, but only when you, in my opinion, only when you absolutely need to. You've exhausted other things. And that's not even talking about indigenous medicine at this point. It's tried some, other
Yeah.
remedies because that's why we're talking about indigenous
Mhm.
medicine here today to open people's eyes to it. How did it begin for you? Now, you mentioned that you've been to those countries and you started that path, but what was the very beginning for that for you?
I've I've always been interested in medicine. I thought I was going to be a doctor when I was a little kid. So I'd study anatomy books and um, yeah, I just always had a fascination about the body. And even I was in college for a long time. Uh, I started with music composition, and during that time I was studying sound healing. And then I went into biology, and like kind of pre-med stuff, and I was studying other forms healing, and then I got into architecture design, and I was also looking at like um, the way buildings were structured, for health and wellness. That was about a 10-year journey, and towards the end of that, I got into Ayurveda, studied that. Then I got into live blood cell analysis and what's called biotrain analysis. It's a type of naturopathic work where we take urine and saliva and do all kinds of measurements, physiological measurements and fluid measurements. And then we were basically suggesting nutraceuticals like supplements, minerals, but specific compounds specifically for that person's biology. And out of that study, I got really triggered in some of the things I found out and what I had known about Ayurveda, because there was like this crossover. And so I decided to go back into that. And that's how I ended up in Tibetan medicine. And then through Tibetan medicine, working with people and seeing kind of the common, one of the most common threads with people that I see is they have lost the confidence in their own body to heal itself. Yep. Whether they're, and then like if they start to try to be natural, kind of, and not do pharmaceutical medicine, they become addicted and reliant on supplements. They listen to podcasts, they find out the new breakthroughs, and they start doing all this stuff. And then a lot of them are getting a little bit tired of that because that's unending. And They start to do superfoods sometimes. And all these different ways that we reach to like replace what our body can do. It's very quick that we start to kind of create this belief that our bodies really can't do it. And you see this really deeply in people that are on pharmaceuticals, and also with people on supplements. It's like they're going to take it until they die. And statistically, people that are using supplements live shorter lives. It's an interesting statistic from a book called The End of Medicine by a medical doctor. Yeah. So I know several people that are doing lots of supplements that were doctors as well. Gym, athletic people, really strong, really bright, really smart, and they die of like massive heart attacks sometimes when they're 50 years old, 60 years old, even though they've had a very strong life. So there's a lot of emphasis in my practice knowing this, and that's allowed me to get. And also, I've always been really interested in indigenous medicine. I've always wanted to help promote and educate it, especially the traditions that are easy to access, like Chinese medicine or Tibetan medicine, Ayurveda, these things that make up Tibetan medicine. And I created a nonprofit for that. And one of the president now of the nonprofit, he has a nonprofit in Southeast Asia. And so we collaborate, and we're doing this big event to help. Primarily, our targets are right now are people that are doing like biohacking and digital nomads. These people are really sharp, really smart. They have money, and they have a really strong level of discrimination. And so what we're going to help is to regenerate some of these ideas out of the Balinese culture that's been preserved. It's 4 million people, 1,000 years of harmony and thriving wellness and beauty, and to help them be able to regenerate their own expressions to any community, any culture, using these techniques. There's not just the medicine. Usually what I'm dealing with is people coming with a physical issue, right? They have a physical issue or some level of stress. And what makes the biggest difference to these people is how I talk to them to instill confidence in their body, and then the remedies I use that help to work in their bodies really energetically. There's some things that are simple that have specific physical effects. But some of the remedies from the indigenous medicine perspective, there's a thing called the wind, and that's equated to, you could say, stress. It's also equated to blood pressure or blood sugar and all these different things that allow our bodies to compensate and keep ourselves balanced. But on its most subtle level, the wind is actually what's keeping the organization of pressure of energy and direction of energy in our different parts of our body. And when we build up stress in different ways, those things get out of balance. So by bringing those back into balance, our body's ability to heal itself and fill in the gaps is incredible. And that's really what got me excited about Tibetan medicine. When I started incorporating some of it, knowing some of the naturopathic background that I had with nutraceuticals and deficiencies and what I would normally give somebody to help them regain balance, in their system. And all I would do is be giving them a remedy that they would take at night before they go to sleep. And they would do that. And within a few days, all of these other manifestations of disorders would go away naturally. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm seeing something that's really unusual. And I had learned about it a little bit in Ayurveda. It's approached a little bit more intensely and I would say a little bit more laser focused with Tibetan medicine, although I did study with an Ayurvedic doctor who was specialized in mental emotional illness. And I watched him clinically many times say certain things to patients, and their health situation would change because they would basically feel and integrate energy that they were kind of like keeping themselves disconnected from. It's all back to this idea that we're not disconnected from anything and everything changes. So yeah, that's the big program we're doing. We're doing a 3-day event, January 27th to 29th. And the website is naturalbornhealer.online. And my personal website is indigenousmedicine.net. My phone number is 530-812-2566. If anyone wants to call and talk, I always give about 15 to 20 minutes free consultation about anything to help them with what they're doing. I'd say about 99% of the time they end up being my clients after that.
I love everything that you just talked about, Douglas, and especially the fact that when our bodies are out of balance, they can't heal themselves. And then people invariably get frustrated that they have an issue. So then they go to a traditional doctor, then they get traditional medicine. And then that's only masking the problem. The Band-Aid is not really taking care of the core issue. When you talk about helping people within your practice, can you give an example? We have a couple of minutes and then we'll repeat the information for the challenge that's coming up at the end of the month. But let's say somebody comes to you with a certain ailment, whatever it might be. You pick it. Maybe it's
you can pick it.
Okay, fantastic.
And can I just interject one thing?
Please.
You said something. You said when we're out of balance, our bodies can't heal ourselves. So that's the Western perception. Okay, the indigenous perception is your body's out of balance, and if there's an illness arising because your body's not healing itself, it's what they call in Tibet. In Tibet, both Tibet and in the Amazon, the word they use is mothers. They say these mothers come out of nature energetically and help to redirect you on the right path because you're doing something wrong. And so the idea is that when they're sick, it's not like a shameful thing that's bad and they're not like in the right place. It's because they don't believe that it's because really they don't believe that their body can heal themselves, and they don't believe that because they don't feel that based on the level of disconnection that they've created in their life. Disconnection with their family, disconnection with their community, disconnection with nature. And that's the fundamental thing that these indigenous societies have like figured out in a lot of ways, Yeah.
And that's the out of balance that you speak of.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's the fundamental one.
Yes.
Like in Tibetan medicine, when we say the cause of all illness is forgetfulness of that we're all interconnected and forgetfulness that everything changes, there's very little that's encouraged to try to convince a person otherwise. We're usually dealing with elements. We're dealing with certain, illnesses and their presentation and how to correct that, what's going on in the diagnosis. But what I'm trying to kind of restore, and it's already there in some cultures, is that really that is the fundamental problem. And we can actually contact that and address that. And we should be talking about that. That's my feeling.
No, I'm glad we are talking about it because it's so impactful, so important. And there's a reason Ayurveda has been around for, I think, 1,000 years. I don't know the exact
thousands of years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody comes to you, they reach out to you, that maybe they go to indigenousmedicine.net and they're dealing, and it's very, I'm going to dare say it's an epidemic right now. Anxiety. So many people are dealing with it. Maybe it's a byproduct of COVID, whatever it is. Just a lot of anxiety, maybe social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
How would you help somebody like that?
First thing I would ask them if they had low blood pressure. Most people don't realize that your endocrine system, this is I got through physiology. This is my teachers told me they apply some of this in the emergency room, but a lot of what I learned doesn't get applied outside of the emergency room. Okay. So your endocrine system depends on proper blood pressure. If it's too strong or too weak, and now most of the people that see me are really kind of health enthusiasts already.
Okay.
Right. And but some of them have issues with sadness and this anxiety.
Depression.
Yeah. I try not to use those words because I'm not a licensed physician. But yes, yeah, exactly.
But that's what I got from sadness. So I said
Yeah. No, like, my one of my main teachers in Tibetan medicine, or my main teacher in Tibetan medicine, he says fixation on the past is depression. Fixation, when your mind is fixated on the future, it's anxiety. And when your mind is fixated on what's happening in a frozen moment, that's confusion, right? Things are flowing, things are moving, one moment after another moment after another. When we get fixated in either direction, right, that's shifting our energy. And these ceremonies and festivals and all these things in these societies, like the Balinese, that's why we're using the Balinese model. They break you out of that. They break you. They bring you back into this flow where you're together with each other, and that energy starts to flow. That energy flow inside the body is crucial in terms of how it's informing the body what to do. In embryology, in Tibetan medicine, we talk about different emotions and how they are responsible for creating the different glands in our response to being embodied into a body. And so, yeah, it goes really deep. But anyways, so if they had anxiety, I would talk to them about their blood pressure first. Okay. I would say 9.5 times out of 10, they have an issue with their blood pressure. Okay.
Wow.
And usually with sadness, for sure, it's low blood pressure. Yeah. It can be either with anxiety. And so when you look at the approach of, I notice that there's brain chemicals that are out of balance in your brain. And so what I'm going to do is give you these chemicals to help balance that out. It makes sense. It's a logical response. It's innocent, kind of. When you see the causative effects, right, more causative effects, then your treatment becomes actually more effective.
When you say, we're almost out of time, but I just want to jump in here and say, when you say chemicals, are you saying things that you help or you?
No, I'm referring to how pharmaceutical medicine is
say no more.
Approaching. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're out, just about out of time. I want to get back to the challenge and the event coming up, but I applaud you and thank you so much for saying what you said before in terms of when somebody thinks about the past, that's sadness or depression, and thinks about the future, that's anxiety. I've never heard it said that way, and it's so elementary, but it's so crystal clear. What would you call
fixation? When they get fixated on it,
fixated, and that's it. You wallow in the past. You think about the future. When you're thinking, you're living truly in the present or doing your best. I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to think about that. I am here right now. Is that balance? Is that where you want to be?
It's balance if you're moving to the next moment. If not, then you're in confusion.
Then you're living in the past.
No, then you're in confusion. Well, kind of.
Or confused.
I think it was Woody Allen said there's no present or future, just the immediate past. But
well, Einstein said there's no time. Time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Not here.
And this is the thing, so that is the thing, the ability for you to change your fixation, for instance, requires a certain amount of strength. That strength, from a physiological perspective, requires a certain amount of blood pressure. Your blood pressure comes from proper minerals and protein in your blood. If your digestion isn't working, then you're not going to have that. And so almost everything, if you look at traditional medicine, comes back to digestion when we're talking about causative functions on a physical thing. Yeah. If you can affect the more subtle energetic level, then it's even more potent. Yeah. But many people can't do that, and we're in a society that a lot of times people aren't willing to go even in that direction. But if we can help the digestion, we can do a lot. And in traditional medicine, like indigenous medicine throughout the world, if you can't fix the digestion, then they don't really consider it proper for you to say that you are practicing medicine, because that is the foundation of everything. And with all due respect, with the incredible stuff we can do with modern medicine, one of the most difficult things that they have to address and have problems with helping is digestion.
Gut health there's so many different aspects of challenges, right down to leaky gut syndrome and on and on and on.
Yeah.
We could
But a
talk
lot
forever.
of those again are automatic when the connection happens, when what we call the wind is balanced. And that's when the wind is balanced, degenerative diseases also go away.
This is fascinating, Douglas, and this is good stuff. I wish we had more time. I really do. The event coming up at the end of January. Please repeat.
Yeah, January 27th to 29th. It's called Align, and Natural Born Healer, and it's naturalbornhealer.online.
And they can find you indigenousmedicine.net, and
That's correct.
A free consult. Talk about it. Start the conversation. Again, there's reasons that this lifestyle, medicine, whatever you want to call it, has been around for centuries because it works. And big pharma, not always the answer. That's all I'm going to say. We could debate that for, I think you and I are on the same page, but I think a lot of people could debate that for a long time. Douglas, I appreciate you being here and for all the details, and look forward next time we have a chance to get together, because this is really good stuff. There's a lot to talk about.
All right, great. Thanks. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
having
much.
the conversation.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.